honest with you. I'm very nervous about giving this talk to so many people. So why don't we start with a question to break the ice? What's your favorite sport? It's a very basic question, I'm aware, but I had to come up with it under pressure. Okay, and now that you've thought about that, I think I came up with a better question now. How would you react if I told you that ballet is my favorite sport? Well, when I was 4 years old, just like any other 4-year-old, my routine consisted of going to kindergarten, playing, sleeping, watching TV, and reading picture books. My favorite books were Olivia, Nina Nina Ballerina, and Angelina Ballerina. I was amused by the art of ballet that these had in common. And I was driven to do it myself. After all, it was simply wearing tutus and twirling and spinning, right? I begged my mom to take me to a ballet class, as I was eager to be like these characters that I loved in my books. I wore my best tutu from my Tinkerbell Halloween costume, and I practiced my spins to show them off in class. Only, once I entered the classroom, I realized that ballet was nothing like what I expected. Everyone wore a leotard and tights, with no tutu, and the dancers stood at a bar, practicing exercises that looked very different from the twirls that I expected to see. They put their legs up on the bar to stretch them, and they were sweating tremendously, almost like they were suffering, which is extremely different from the gorgeous and smiley characters that I loved in my books. But this unexpected class did not push me away. Instead, it made me more excited and intrigued to dance. And 13 years later, I finally understood that all of these exercises are what guide dancers to build up the qualities that they need to make their job look effortless, like it appears to be. It requires enormous strength, control, and flexibility to make a dancer look weightless on stage. I also understood that if I wasn't involved in the ballet world, I would have no insight whatsoever on the athletic qualities of ballet that the world refuses to acknowledge. When I was 10 years old, my family and I moved to Brazil. Living in a different country was hard, and as much as I absolutely adore my distant family, having to call them with updates every week was exhausting, especially because it made me realize that my life wasn't really that interesting. It was just the same old routine, which at this point consisted of waking up, going to school for 8 hours, going to ballet for 3 hours, coming back home to shower, and sleeping every single day. And even when I didn't understand the language, when I didn't know other people, and when the world stopped because of a global pandemic, ballet remained a constant in my life. Ballet became my safe space, and it was comforting to find something that I was familiar with, within all the confusion that came with the changes. I specifically remember talking to a family member on the phone a week after my ballet competition, from which I had sent them a video of. I was really excited for them to watch it, because I thought I had nailed the performance, and I was extremely proud of myself. I remember them telling me that it was beautiful, and I smiled at those words. However, my smile quickly faded as they proceeded to ask me, "Wouldn't you like to do a sport? Or wouldn't you prefer to do something more athletic?" At first, I was confused. Wasn't I already practicing a sport? In my head, ballet was a sport. I mean, I competed, I burnt calories, I raised my heart rate, I had fun. Plus, my friends that trained in other sports at this point only practiced for around a third of the time that I practiced for. Yet, all of them were considered athletes, but not me. This wasn't the first or the last time that I ever heard that question. In fact, the stigma regarding athleticism and art echoes around dancers constantly. Still, I was shocked at hearing this coming from my family, as even after they'd taken me to my ballet school to rehearse for hours every day, they've seen me dunk my feet in ice to help with the pain. They've smelled me as I come out of class drenched in sweat. They still fail to consider that ballet is a sport. Or even here at school, for instance. Last year, when I had my ballet exams, I brought in a letter from my ballet school in order to excuse my absences for those days. However, I was told that they wouldn't be excused because it was simply an exam and not a sports tournament or a competition. Sure, it was just an exam in which representatives flew in from England to assess whether or not you could continue advancing in ballet. It was just an exam that I had been preparing myself for all year. It was just an exam that I only had one chance to pass. But it's not for a sport, so it doesn't really matter. But what even defines a sport? According to the Cambridge Dictionary definition, a sport is all types of physical activity that people do to keep healthy or for enjoyment. Ballet is all of those things and so much more. I know I may be biased, but I actually think a lot of dancers would disagree with me in saying that ballet is a sport and not an art, because it takes away from its beauty. However, I argue that ballet is both an art and a sport, as not only does it require extremely physically demanding skill, but dancers must perform through musicality, technique, and expression, which is so much more than only athletics. Simply classifying it as an art, however, takes away from this, because the physical skills that it requires can't possibly compare to those of other art forms. Ballet is something that is completely brutal, as it pushes dancers past their limits, things that the human body wasn't made to do, such as doing the splits, holding a balance, or standing on point, which is essentially dancing for hours at the very tips of their toes in shoes that are made from some sort of paper mache and satin. Ballet is something that is completely inhumane, yet it is somehow what makes me feel human. Okay, so who here knows who Lionel Messi is? Yeah, I bet most of you know him. I mean, he's a legend. Now, raise your hand if you know who Misty Copeland is. That's what I thought. Misty Copeland was the first African-American female principal dancer with the American Ballet Theater. One of these athletes trains for around 9 hours every day and has a net worth of $1.5 million. The other athlete trains for around 6.5 daily hours and has a net worth of $600 million. Can you guess which is which? Well, Misty Copeland trains for significantly more hours than Messi trains, yet most people don't even know her name, and she is worth 400 times less than Messi. Becoming a principal dancer or a prima ballerina is extremely unlikely, yet this insane accomplishment is not nearly as recognized as those of other athletes. Or even in the Olympics, disciplines such as rhythmic gymnastics, artistic swimming, figure skating, and breakdancing are all considered sports, which, although they are undoubtedly rigorous and athletic, they're also very similar to ballet, which is not classified as an Olympic sport, with the argument that it is too much of an art. Or sports that have participated in past Olympics, such as chess and bowling, which arguably require fewer physical demands than ballet and are still classified as an Olympic sports. Ballet has taught me so much more than just dance. It teaches discipline, flexibility, coordination, commitment, expression. It has given me some of the best friends that I could ever ask for, and it has shaped me into the person I am today in all possible aspects. Ballet is my lifestyle. It is a part of my identity, and it requires so much sacrifice to get better and better each day. I think the reason why most people don't think of ballet as a sport is because of how graceful it is. Every movement is done with such precision and fragility, making it look easy. Nonetheless, it requires so much strength and muscle engagement to achieve this result. I sometimes wonder if the pain and suffering that ballet can often offer is actually worth it when no one will give me the recognition. Why does validation matter to me? I'm sure that many of you could relate in regards to putting a lot of effort into something that you love and that you're passionate about and still not receiving the recognition for it. We tend to make assumptions about others and things that we're unfamiliar with without getting to know and understanding them, when we never know what goes on behind the curtain. And I don't blame you. After all, I would probably also think that ballet is easy if I hadn't tried it myself. There are so many things that we assume or that we take for granted without looking at their deeper meaning. It's like an iceberg. We only see its tip when we don't acknowledge the meters of eyes that are holding it underneath. So next time you look at someone and envy how perfect their life is, or judge them for their actions and their choices, I want you to stop for a second and think, how much do you really know about them? And what would you do if you were in their position? You'll be surprised on how much you can change your own mind by just examining things a little deeper before jumping to conclusions, just like I hope I changed your mind about ballet today. But most importantly, I want to encourage you to keep doing the things you love, regardless of the value that others give. Ballet is my favorite thing. It keeps me active, and it takes over an enormous percentage of my life that I wouldn't trade for anything in the world. I will always fight for ballet to be recognized as a sport and to receive the validation that it deserves. However, even if this is not granted, I know I am proud of the effort that I put into it, and my passion and love for the sport are so much stronger than anyone else's opinion could ever be. Thank you.